Woo! Well, it says we are live. We are live and thriving. Oh, I like that. Live and thriving.
Mm-hmm.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Ashley Jackson Thompson, and I am so excited, for the extension of our Overcoming Anxiety talk today. Again, we have Miriam Baldwin and Stephanie Lora Bearce. Did I say your last name correctly?
It's Bearce, like purse with a B.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Nobody knows that, so don't feel bad.
Okay. Yeah, great. So like I said, I'm super excited about going in a deeper dive, just talking about, just overcoming our anxiety. And, we all have anxiety, right? All of us do. But being a caregiver comes with just an extra set of anxious weight. And, Miriam and I are on a mission to help caregivers avoid burnout, get rid of these anxious feelings. It's not going to be an overnight process. We had to learn that. But starting somewhere is very important. So just to tell you a little bit about me, my name is Ashley again, and I take care of my husband, and I have started to step in to help take care of my grandpa. And it is such an honor to be able to do so. I am the founder of Timeless Dream Events, where we plan specifically, we plan specifically for terminally and chronically ill and their loved ones, any kind of event, whether it's weddings, showers, celebration of life, whatever it be. So that is a little bit of my story. Miriam, won't you tell the listeners a little bit about you?
Thank you. I'm so excited. My name is Miriam Baldwin, and I'm the caregiver to my husband and my brother. Yes, two wonderful gentlemen. And I'm the founder of Caregiver 2.0, the 6-week online program. And yes, I'm writing a book about my caregiver's journey. And like I said before, I am so excited. I can't wait to share nuggets with you. But first, I want to say, Stephanie, who is Stephanie?
Hi, ladies. Thank you so much for having me back. I've been so looking forward to continuing this conversation because, let's be real, it's just so much more than a single even hour can cover, and even the next 3 days. But my name is Stephanie Lora Bearce. I'm an anxiety and empowerment coach, Reiki master, and speaker. And I'm just so passionate about helping as many people as possible understand that, anxiety doesn't have to run your life. And there are some really simple things, not easy, but simple things that you can do to start to incorporate into your life to just alleviate a little bit of anxiety. And I just feel so blessed to be here to have this conversation. So thank you for having me.
Wonderful. So Stephanie, what do you want to start off with? Because from what I understood, you have so many things to share with our viewers, listeners. So let's jump in and start with all the great stuff that you want to share with our viewers and listeners.
Absolutely. So, there is so much. And I have a couple, tried to break it down the best I could into 3 days. So, as we're going through, if anybody has questions on anything that we're talking about, if there's something I touch on and you want us to expand a little bit on that, I would love to really cater this to those of you who are watching. If you do end up
monitoring.
Awesome. If you do end up watching on the replay later as well, comment then still, because we can incorporate some questions into the next 2 days too, which is really important, is that this is not the only time that we get to have these conversations. So yes, so I'm super excited. And I really wanted to focus today on a lot of the foundational things that I teach, that I bring awareness to with my clients, and as well as give you some really tangible things to be able to take away from this to help you in the moment. We're going to do a funky little exercise in a little while that I'm really excited about. We're going to be making weird faces together. It's going to be great.
Love it.
Sorry about my background. I do have my dog Mason here today, so I'm hoping he's going to cooperate. But anyway, let's dive right in. So I would love to start off talking about our anxiety foundation. So a lot of times this is just this is something that not a whole lot of people even really know is there, because when it comes to anxiety, overwhelm, stress, whatever it may be, a lot of times you're just kind of in survival mode, especially for a lot of you out there who are caretakers, where it's almost like there's so much outside of yourself that you feel that you have to focus on first, so that your own pieces kind of get lost in the wash. And so figuring out for yourself where what's contributing to your anxiety foundation. And so these things are, maybe the things that you're avoiding doing for yourself, maybe making some personal appointments, returning some phone calls, paperwork, adulting in any sense sometimes can just be adding to that foundation in itself. And it kind of starts off with the theme of today is going to be self-awareness. And you have to become more aware of what's going on inside of your mind. What are some of the things that are causing you some like low-level stress and anxiety? And this is important to note, because say that you have an anxiety or stress capacity of a scale of 1 to 10. Okay. So when something comes along during the day that maybe spikes you up 3 points, going from a 0 to 3 isn't, totally unmanageable. What ends up happening with the anxiety foundation, though, is that these things tend to pile on top of each other, right? All the things that we're avoiding, the things that, and there's no shame with avoidance, because I am a master procrastinator, and I totally have been working on this for myself for a very long time. So there's no shame here, no judgment or anything as we're talking about this stuff, because a lot of times when I say things, there's probably things popping up for some of you in your head like, oh, I bet you that's it. So no shame, because we all do it. But being aware of what these things are is key, because if you've got all these things that have stacked up on this anxiety foundation for you, this means that you're starting off your day at a 3 or a 4, because your foundation has pushed your 0 up to a 3 as your baseline. So then when something else comes in and knocks you up 3 notches, you're not going from a 0 to a 3, you're going from a 3 to a 6. And it feels so much more intense and overwhelming and just completely unmanageable sometimes. And this is where anxiety attacks become a little bit more frequent. Avoidance techniques come in like crazy, and we just end up actually contributing more and more and more to our foundation as a means of trying to manage what's in front of us. And so the first piece I always start with is that self-awareness of, okay, where am I at on a daily? Like if you had to think about it and gauge sort of your baseline number on a scale of 1 to 10, where are you starting right now? What number do you feel like is sort of your constant? And assessing that first.
I never thought to put a number to it. I never, when I was at my most anxious, I thought it was normal. Like, oh, this, caregivers, we have so much on our plates. It's like, this is our new normal. And then it just becomes normal. So if I wake up and I'm already at a 5 or 6 on my anxious scale, level, that was just going to be it for that day.
Yeah. Yeah. And you simply don't know what you don't know,
Exactly. Exactly.
When you're suffering from dizziness or nausea, you don't think of anxiety.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
It's crazy how it manifests itself.
And that's where that like the self-awareness and paying attention to how it presents for you is so important, because for some people it is nausea, or maybe it's headaches or joint pain or insomnia. Like food intolerances can pop up as a way of stress or anxiety, like forgetfulness, irritability, like, 0 to 60 rage monkeys. That can be a sign of anxiety.
0 to 60 rage monkeys. I love it.
Right? I think most of us can probably think of a time where we have gone 0 to 60 rage monkeys and been like, where did that even come from?
So Stephanie, what tools can you use? Are there certain techniques you can use?
Yes, absolutely. So, talking at first about that self-awareness and becoming a little bit more aware of your anxiety foundation, of the things that are contributing to this. Of course, in the moment, we also need to figure out, like, great, okay, I figured this stuff out. I don't have time to handle them all right now. So how can I feel better in the moment? And some of my, had a little brain nudge there for a second. Sorry. In terms of something else popped into my head and I was like, oh, we're going to go there first. I do.
I love it.
So when it comes to things like I love helping people really be able to rip it out at the roots. But as you're going through and identifying these things, they can actually spark a little bit of anxiety in themselves, right? So say that you know that part of your anxiety foundation is that you've had something going on, maybe for your own physical health, and have wanted to make an appointment and just haven't done it. So then when you start to think about the thing you haven't done, it causes a little bit of anxiety for you. So for sure. So the first step, then we need to kick shame and self-judgment to the curb. That has no place here. It's going to pop up every once in a while, but tomorrow we're going to focus a lot on self-talk. That extra component there. But sorry about that. I'm not sure where that noise came from. But in the moment when you're feeling it, identify when you start beating yourself up, because that's just going to make it so much worse. The next one is to start to employ some of these small techniques to help you in the moment. So the first one, always check your breathing. Always, always, always. When we start to become more, become a little bit more activated, oftentimes what can happen there is, I'm sorry, there's a super echo. I'm not sure if that's me or not. I hope nobody else is able to hear that. Okay. I think, okay. Yay. Anyway, so I have a little bit of like executive functioning focus issues when there's background noises.
It is okay. It's okay. We are real up in here. I'll go ahead and mute myself though while others are talking.
Okay, and I will do the same when we're rotating too. So, okay, so check your breathing. Always make sure, number one is, have you started to shorten your breath? And this is something that the body actually does on its own. When we start to experience stress or anxiety, something starts to get us worked up. There's a chain reaction that happens in the body that activates our stress response. And so when we restrict our own breath out of a little bit of anxiety or panic, that tells our brain, hey, there's something going on to be stressed about. What's happening? And it starts looking around for whatever the threat is. And the thing to notice about your fight, flight, or freeze response in the body is that it is going to be the same thing if you are being chased by a bear and your life is actually in danger, or if you're having some anxiety over making a phone call. Like, the response in the body is the exact same, which is crazy to note. A lot of people don't know that. And so everything starts happening in the body the same way it would if you needed to actually run for your freaking life. So your blood pressure is going to come up. The cortisol levels are rising. Pupils are dilating. That's where that like hyperventilating, shortness of breath really comes in. There's a whole flood of like chemicals that happen in the body. But our body doesn't know that we're anxious over a phone call. It's trying to make sure that we're not going to die. And so, sometimes it's battling against that stress response that's going on. And so the number one way to circumvent that is to slow your breathing. And so focus on, and it's funny because I do this when I'm speaking. I start to restrict my breath and I have to actually okay, that's right. Take a couple deep breaths just because I get so excited. And it can happen in that sense too. Yeah, Miriam, do you have something?
No, you talk about breathing, and I'm like, it really calms me.
Mm-hmm.
When I take 5 deep breaths, is it maybe you can show our viewers how to do this?
Yes. Yeah.
Let's do a breathing exercise.
Absolutely. So there's a number of them out there to choose from. The easiest one, where you don't even have to think about it and start counting things, is literally just to sit back in your seat and start to breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth. And so if you're noticing you're getting really worked up and it helps to count, going into, out to, and doing that until you can get to 4. So we're going to go in 4, out 4, in 4, out 4. And so once you get to the point that maybe you don't need the counting anymore, starting to just take slow, deep breaths and envisioning your lungs expanding to their fullest capacity. So there's some crazy percentage, I think we only use 70% of our full lung capacity as humans on average, because we're in instant gratification, gotta go, gotta run, gotta do, out of our body sort of experience society these days. And so we don't use the full capacity of our lungs. And so doing this a couple times a day, whether you're actually experiencing anxiety in the moment or not, is actually really healthy. I know I had shared in the last time that we got together that I set silent alarms on my phone that just go off with the word breathe in all caps. It's 5 or 6 times a day to remind me to do this routinely, because I am the self-professed anxiety queen who's also had anxiety since she was 9. So, this is something that I have to do for myself routinely too. And so as you're settling into your body and taking these full deep breaths, if you're following along and you want to close your eyes for a moment, I want you to envision, as you breathe in through your nose, picture a set of lungs in front of you. And as you breathe in, they're inflating to the fullest capacity in which they are able to inflate. And as you breathe out, they are constricting and emptying all of that old stagnant air that's in your body. Breathing in through your nose, envisioning them filling again. And then as you exhale through your mouth, envisioning them constricting and getting all of that old breath out of your body. And only doing this a couple times. So maybe 3 or 4 times, because you can actually overwhelm your system with oxygen if you're not used to doing this. And I don't want anyone to get lightheaded. So this isn't exactly, no one needs to be passing out here. But doing cool visuals like that will actually allow your body to relax more into the activity you want it to be doing, as opposed to just, you know what I mean? There's a visual component and it makes it a little bit more powerful. But again, remember, 5 times max. I'd even say 3 as you're starting this practice for yourself, because we all need oxygen, obviously, but it's also something that if we haven't been getting enough of it, it can go right to your head, make you feel a little bit lightheaded. And I don't want that causing any extra anxiety for anyone either. So if you notice that's starting to happen, stop with the deep breathing and just get into a regular breathing practice. So that's another great way. There's a few. Go ahead, Miriam.
Yeah, I'm so excited. I have a few questions. If you're done with the breathing technique, of course. I'm not sure if you wanted to say anything else about the breathing technique, like one of the tools. And I meditate,
Mm-hmm.
and I also learned how to breathe. So that is one of the techniques as well you talked about in our last session.
Yeah.
But I wanted to ask you about self-acceptance and anxiety. Could you tell us a bit more about that?
Mm-hmm.
The self-acceptance.
Absolutely. So anxiety lives to lie to you. Lives. I have actually, I think it's right in front of me here. It is a silver bracelet that says on the inside, your anxiety is lying to you. As a little like reminder that that's what it lives for. And so it's going to tell you all of these things about yourself, all of these things about the things that you're dealing with, most 98% of the time of which are not true. And so, self-acceptance comes in to this point here really strongly, because if you accept yourself, when you're able to accept yourself fully for who you are, for how you show up, for all of the things that you may be experiencing and dealing with, the lies have less of a hold on you. And so, the really powerful piece of this is, again, starting to pay more attention to your self-talk, to the way that versus the way that that'll actually help you notice when it's your anxiety speaking versus when it's you actually speaking your truth. Because your anxiety doesn't speak your truth. It is going to tear you down. It's going to make you feel like you are so alone in the world, like no one understands, tell you all of these terrible lies so it can get bigger and bigger and bigger. Because anxiety wants to expand. It wants to infiltrate all of the places. It wants to sort of take over in the moment. And it has no hold when you have accepted yourself and everything fully. And so, there's a couple things with this that I know I had planned for tomorrow's conversation. So we will definitely be coming back to this because I have a whole self-talk piece planned for tomorrow that's going to have some exercises to do with this. And I don't want to get too far ahead of myself on that. So we are definitely going to come back to this piece. But one of the other things about acceptance is not only accepting yourself, but accepting what the reality is right now. So anxiety thrives when we are trying to fight against what's happening. And so what I mean by this is that so often when we're not happy with something, when we are, and I know you both had actually shared some experiences in our last conversation about just the very like isolating frustration that can come as a caregiver, like, oh my, like, how did this happen? How did my life turn out to be this way? Why are we dealing with this? And it sounds a little counterintuitive, but stick with me for a second. The answer to not letting anxiety drown you about the things that have come up and questioning all of those things why is actually surrender and acceptance. Because the more that you fight against your reality, the more that you rage against and fight against what's in front of you, the longer that you are going to stay stuck in a mental and anxious place that you don't want to be in. I'm not saying don't have your feelings, because I am also the self-proclaimed queen of feel your feels, and you need to let yourself have them, which we'll definitely talk more about too. But accepting something is the first step to being able to move past it. It doesn't mean you have to stay there. It doesn't mean that this is now your defining experience for the rest of your life, but it's a freeing activity that actually opens up the ability to shift your focus, shift your reality, and shift your life once you stop using all of your energy to fight against what's really going on. So is that landing? Does that make sense?
Girl, I just need you to say that one more time. One more time.
Absolutely. That acceptance and surrender is the key. We need to stop fighting against what's really going, like what our reality is, and accept what's in front of you, accept the reality of the situation, saying, I don't have to be happy about it, but this is where we are. And that acceptance opens you up to the freedom to be able to shift your reality, shift the way you feel, and it loosens those hooks that anxiety has in you when you allow yourself to surrender to what's happening in the moment. Because so much of this stuff you can't change. You don't have control over so much. And one of the most empowering and freeing things that you can realize is that you cannot control a single thing that happens in your life. But that doesn't mean that you are not in control of how you choose to respond to what's happening to you.
And I just want to cut in real quick.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's really hard for people like me who are control freaks.
Mm-hmm.
It's really hard.
It is.
To let go and let God, like they say.
Yeah.
Why can't I do X, Y, Z? I need to do X, Y, Z. You know, when things happen in your life, whether you're a caregiver or not, and it throws you off balance, your anxiety is going to shoot through the roof. I didn't realize it was anxiety. I just thought, oh, I have to be in control of everything. I just didn't realize it was because of anxiety that I feel like I have to be in control of everything.
Which is then funny because the answer to getting out of that is giving up the control, which feels so counterintuitive to that feeling, right?
And sometimes I still feel myself like, no, it's mine. Like from the Lord of the Rings, my precious.
Oh my God.
My precious. You know, like, no, I don't want to give it up.
Yes. And it's that death grip, like that Gollum had there. It's that death grip on things that keeps us in that space instead of allowing things to flow as they're going to flow. And it's funny because, you know, there's all go with the flow, let it go. All of these things are so easy to say, but so much harder to do in the moment. And so instead of focusing on letting go, if that's the part that you're struggling with, focus more on, you know, loosening the grip. Okay, not letting it go completely, because going from 0 to 60 doing anything feels overwhelming and it makes us want to shut down. Heard. But just loosening the grip. You know, what can I do to loosen 1% of this death grip that I have over this today? Is it breathing into the moment? Is it reminding myself that my feelings are valid? You know, all of these tiny things. Actually, the death grip leads us really awesomely into a technique I wanted to teach everybody that's about tension and releasing that tension in your body. But before I go there, Miriam, did you have something that you wanted to say to the last part of the conversation there? Because I know you were unmuted.
I totally, I know exactly what you're talking about, because I wanted, like Ashley said, no, it's mine. I imagined my life being totally different, traveling all over the world, doing this, doing that. And instead of that, I was the caregiver to my husband, who had kidney failure on dialysis, kidney pancreas transplant. So I didn't imagine my life to be like that. But once I started accepting the fact that I couldn't change that, I couldn't change his illness, I had to deal with it. I felt a relief.
Yeah.
That was step number one. So I totally get what you're talking about, because I was there. I was fighting like, no. This isn't what I planned. This isn't what I want. This isn't what I wished for. So.
And then think about how much energy that took out of you to fight and rage against your reality every single day. It's like from waking to sleeping, trying to walk upstream against a raging river, right? Just fighting that constant thing of what's coming. And it takes so much out of you.
All my energy and dizzy, nausea, all of it. And like Ashley said, and like you said, I didn't know it was anxiety.
Yeah.
I just thought I had anger issues.
Huge monkeys. Yep. Yeah. No, and that's so, I'm really glad you guys both brought that up, because that's so important to notice, is that, like, you know, we think it's all these other things, like, oh, okay, well, I'm just an angry bitch. Like, okay, well, I just forget stuff, or whatever. I just don't love this. But because it shows up in so many different ways, this is where that, like, the self-awareness is so key. Paying attention to, how does it show up for you? Like in those moments when you're angry, you know, what's happened right before that that's led you to that? Is it something that feels out of control for you? Is it, you know, a frustration over your reality? You know, whatever it is, just paying a little bit more attention to like the foundations of what sets you off and asking yourself questions like, you know, when is it that I get angry? When is it that I start to forget things? Is this something a little bit more? And I'm not saying that everybody has anxiety that's angry, but asking ourselves these questions is so important to understand more of your reality, your experience, and opening yourself up to maybe it's a little bit more than just I'm angry all the time or I'm tired all the time. You know, like a lot of times there's other reasons for it. So yeah, just tuning into that self-awareness there. It's A day, awareness, acceptance, all the things. All of them. So there's a really awesome technique that I would love to share with you all, because this is something that you not only can do to fall asleep at night, but which I know is, you know, because insomnia and anxiety is such a thing, to calm your body down. It's something that you can utilize in the moment where no one's even going to notice that you're doing it, but it's going to help a lot. And so it's called PMR, or progressive muscle relaxation. And I will be sure to post in the comments, and I'll share with Ashley so you can put places, the PDF that I have on this. Yep. I'm such a visual person myself, so I can speak on things all day, but when I'm listening, I'm like, I need something to look at. So
PMR.
Yes. So PMR. So basically what it is, total Spark Notes version, but is we are tensing and releasing different muscle groups in the body. And what this does is it actually allows you to relax your mind, relax your body on a whole other level, because, words. So the fun thing about this is that you can do it from your whole body, top to bottom. This is something on nights when I'm having a really hard time falling asleep, or my anxiety manifests at around 2 o'clock in the morning when I wake up for no reason and can't fall back asleep. So if anybody, Ashley, if anybody else has that too, that's a really frequent anxiety symptom that people just think, oh, you know, I have insomnia or I can't sleep. No, you may have anxiety. Questions to ask yourself. And so when this happens, and when I get stuck in that place that you're just laying in bed staring at the ceiling like, what the hell am I going to do? PMR is awesome for this sense. And so, like I said, I'm going to take my glasses off for this. I'm going to like break them on my face. But we're activating and releasing different muscle groups across the body. So wherever you feel more comfortable starting, your feet or your head, whatever, and there are full steps for this in the PDF I'm going to share too. You are tensing for like 5 to 10 seconds as hard as you possibly can, these different muscle groups. And so this is where I said we're going to make weird faces, because we're going to activate the muscles in our face and in our head, like fully. And I love this one. This one won't be one that you want to do like in public when you're trying to not draw attention to yourself. If you need to, that's fine. And I'm not judging, but I will always give you things to do alone and things that you can do in public. And so Perfect. This one, you're literally tensing every muscle in your face and in your head. So you're going like this, like as hard as you can, eyebrows up, like so you look like a creep.
I look like I'm about to snap.
Yeah. So you do that for like 5 to 10 seconds. Take a deep breath and relax the muscles as you let it go. And then you move down to your shoulders. So for about 5 seconds, we're going to tense everything up in here as hard as you can. So 1, 2, 3, tense up to your ears, almost until your muscles are shaking. And then in through your nose and out through your mouth, and allow all of it to let go.
Oh.
And as you go through the different parts of your body to do this, you're going to notice like a melty feeling that comes. And a lot of times this is going to help you identify where you've been holding tension that you may have had no idea about. I tend to hold a lot of mine here and in my stomach. And so I do this routinely throughout the day just to relax while I'm sitting at my desk, especially because, you know, we're like hunched over and not sitting very nicely. So doing that and letting go, you may notice, ooh, okay, these just settled way down further than they were before I started. So you can go through, and like I said, in the PDF I'll share, it shows all the different points of the body. So we don't have to go through the whole thing right now. But the number one most helpful thing to do with PMR, especially when you're somewhere where there's other people, if you're in a waiting room or, you know, just in a room with other people, is the fists. And so clenching your fists as hard as you possibly can for 5 to 10 seconds, and then doing the letting it go and releasing the muscles activates some of that relaxing properties for the rest of your body. But you can literally do it like in your lap. You know what I mean? Like people don't have to watch you. Like you don't have to be up here.
Yeah.
But you can do that in your lap. And the hands is a very, one of my favorite things about anxiety is that it is energy that is dying to be expressed. And our hands hold a lot of anxiety and energy in the body because we tend to, you know, if we're writing for long periods or if you're typing or just like not activating them really, there's a lot that can be released through the fingers and through the hands. So doing the PMR, you know, usually like 5 seconds is good. As hard as you can, releasing and then shaking them out, rolling your shoulders back and just kind of like being there in your body in the moment. The hands will help so much in those moments where anxiety is starting to ramp up a little bit. But maybe you're in a place where you're like, oh my God, okay, my anxiety's coming up and I can't do anything. And there's people here. Do the PMR in the hands, and kind of partnered with slowing down that breathing a little bit. Some of the other things that we've talked about, you can do this very discreetly without having to call a whole lot of attention to what's going on.
So Stephanie, rewind.
Yep.
You wake up in the morning at 2 a.m. And you can start using these techniques, like your fist or your shoulders, and then it will help you to fall asleep again.
To calm down and fall asleep again. Yep. So that's one that you would want to do kind of like from head to toe. Since, you know, usually at 2 a.m. we're awake alone if that's what's happening. So going through the whole body, and usually what happens is I don't even get all the way down through my legs before I'm falling asleep again. Because what it does, I wish I'd pulled this up beforehand, but I should have had the actual like definition in front of me. But it, through the progressive muscle relaxation, is you're basically from head to toe giving your body the signal that it's time to relax. We're going to tense this. And then that intense like feeling of letting go is what helps to promote the relaxation in the rest of the body as well.
Wow. I'm taking notes.
I love it.
I love it. I love it.
Listen, I wanted to share something that fellow caregiver Jerry mentioned. She said anxiety rise when we are trying to fight against something. So it was in conjunction with what you had mentioned. Thanks, Jerry, for that quote.
Absolutely. So, I mean, that goes right in line with what we were talking about with either the death grip that we have on something or not allowing ourselves to just surrender to the moment. It makes such a big difference when you allow yourself to, and it's the one thing that I'm going to come back to each day is the fact that we get to choose how we respond. And we actually have so much more power over our circumstances, over things than usually than one, we think we do, then two, our anxiety is telling us that we do. And knowing that every single moment of every day is a new opportunity for you to choose how you want to face what's in front of you. And, you know, a theme that like I said, I'm going to keep coming back to is choosing love over fear. Yes. Knowing that how, you know, you're going to have feelings of fear. Sure. There's going to be feelings of, you know, those what ifs that we're going to really talk about and dig into on day 3, that uncertainty, uncontrollableness of what can happen, you get to choose how you respond to that. And you get to choose. And like, that's the really cool thing is there's so much, especially in what a lot of you are going through and are dealing with in the day-to-day, there's so much that is outside of your control. But reminding yourself that you get to choose your response to certain things is going to help you activate more of a powerful place with things than maybe you were feeling before. And, you know, anxiety will come up and say, well, we're just choosing how we respond. Like, no, that's where the power is. Because choosing how you respond then designates to your mind and your body how you show up. It allows you to care deeper and show up more fully and allow yourself to, it means you get to choose how you want to show up in the world and how you want to show up for your loved ones. And remembering that we tend to default to fear and anxiety because that's a lot of the ways that society's conditioned us. That's a lot of the ways, you know, like I was talking before about the fact that we're like that instant gratification, like go, 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 go anxiety or society. We weren't taught to relax. We weren't taught from a young age to surrender to love. You know, like fear has been the reigning experience for so many people, be it, you know, academically in school when you were little, you know, being bullied and not being understood. Like fear has been the reigning experience for so many of us. But just because you've learned that up until now doesn't mean that you can't change what your reigning experience is from here moving forward.
And you make a great point about, you know, how our society is. And I wanted to take this time to ask Miriam, since you brought it up again. I think American society is like that. It's that instant, like, bam, I see it, I want it, not tomorrow, but now. Miriam, is that the case in Europe? Because I talk, you know, with all my travels, I talk to people about how, you know, they feel, you know, their day to day. And, you know, a lot of my European friends, they don't even go to work until 9-10 o'clock in the morning because they get to sit down and have their breakfast, their cup of coffee, their tea. You know, no, that ain't the case. America, you better be at your job at 7-8 o'clock in the morning because you already late.
It's different. It depends which part of Europe. I have friends in Spain and they don't start until 11, 12 in the morning. But here in the Netherlands, I'm used to starting at 7, between 7 and 8. So it depends on which part of Europe. The more southern, the countries in the southern part of Europe, like Italy, Spain, they are used to starting later. But they go on for many more hours. They are used to go to sleep. My friends sleep at 2 a.m. When we were in Barcelona, they said, okay, I know you're used to having dinner at 7 p.m., but we're going to have an early dinner because, we will have dinner at 10 p.m. 10 p.m., sorry. And I was like, what, 10 p.m.?
Uh-huh.
So it's different over there.
How do you feel? Do you think they are less anxious though because they get to have
more
time?
ease. They have more ease. I live in the western part of the Netherlands, and it's like it's always rush hour here. I compare it to New York, where I live. The more, if you go to the southern part of the Netherlands, Belgium, you can see that the people have more ease. And it's so funny. Whenever I'm in Miami or another part of the US, I have more ease. Why? Because the traffic, even though it's busy, for me, it's easier. I can drive in certain parts of the USA. And when I'm back in the Netherlands, I'm like, okay, yes, back to reality, rush hour. So it's
Yeah, I
so
was just
fun
wondering
to
if,
experience this. Yeah.
yeah, because I know you've dealt with having to drive back and forth, my back and forth driving was way more different than yours because your drive time was longer because of the traffic per se.
Yeah,
So I just wondered
absolutely.
how that kind of factored into your anxiety with when you were taking your husband, and then your
It was
brother, of
always
course,
rush
too.
hour, and I remember that I often had moments when I was gasping for breath, like, okay, let's have a quick breakfast. Let's do this first. And there was so much going on in my mind. And I now that I think back, I had a lot on my plate, like all
Yeah.
of us. Caregivers, we do have a lot on our plate. And like I said, it was always rush hour. Okay, you have to be in the hospital at 8:15, and then you start driving. You have to start driving at 6 a.m. Otherwise, you won't make it. You won't be there in time. So like 6 a.m. Wake up at 4:30 to make sure that all the things. Don't forget anything. It was crazy. And when thinking of I think about what Stephanie just said about choosing love over fear, at a certain point, I had to make a choice not to let others determine my worth, to forgive myself as well. And because I was always comparing myself to others or thinking what others might think of me as a caregiver, I was constantly fighting. I was fighting the ideas, that negative chatter we all have. It was really hard. Beating that BITCH.
Yeah.
Yeah. So choosing love over fear, Stephanie, I'm so happy you brought that up because it's really important.
It is really important. And I love that you brought up, you used the word peace earlier in part of what you were sharing. And I can't remember the exact place, but this, choosing love over fear, choosing peace over fear or anxiety, choosing calm. Like these are things that, while we may be in situations like you're describing where, you're in rush hour constantly and you're trying to get to appointments and you're, caring for this other person, it's very easy to default to the rush and the anxiety and the fear and like, okay, we got to go, make sure that we can get there on time. But it's so interesting, once you choose a different way of responding to what's in front of you, the way that you feel doing the thing is going to be so different. So like how we respond to traffic. This has been a really big one for me because I live in Massachusetts in the US, and there is a term for people who live here. They call us massholes. We're pretty well known for that, especially the people out by Boston. And driving especially is something that used to like just trigger the anxiety and anger monkeys in me. And when I decided to change the way that I responded to the traffic and the other massholes on the road and everybody else who's driving like a total idiot, my experience got better. I can't control them or how it feels for me to have to drive in and out of Boston. I did that 3 times a week for a lot of the beginning of a summer one time, taking my best friend to her radiation appointments. And I remember that, going in and out of the city, I don't live near the city. I live out in Western Mass, which people don't actually think exists if you're outside of Massachusetts. Going in and out of there every day was so stressful. And it got to the point that I would wake up in the morning knowing I was going to go pick her up to go into the city. And I would wake up, like my anxiety manifests in my stomach. And so I would wake up nauseous and then I wouldn't eat. Yep. Then I wouldn't eat, which would make it so much better because when we don't fuel our body in a healthy way, that's when all those things get to take over even further. And then it spiraled out and I'd get, super anxious. And then she would feel my anxiety in the car, and she's got her own anxiety about having to go to radiation.
Yes.
And it's like the whole thing. And when I chose to respond differently to what was in front of me, knowing that, we couldn't control the traffic. I couldn't control the drive. But what I could control was the music or the podcast that I would put on, the breathing that I would choose to do, waking up half an hour earlier so that I felt less rushed, and making myself something healthy for the road. Like, there's small things that we can do to change how we're reacting to something we can't control, that's going to make the thing we can't control feel so much like it has so much less power over you.
Yeah, I had to start telling myself, like, the hospital's literally not going anywhere.
Yeah.
We'll get there when we get there. And of course, my husband, Troy, he's like, if we're late, oh, well, that's just less time I have to be there. Right. But, I would beat myself up. Yeah. Because I couldn't determine traffic at all points during our drive, but, and then I would be upset if I would make him late, because it was so important, that he be at these appointments, at his treatments. And I just had to start telling myself, like, you can't get into such a rush where you cause an accident, or and then what? And then what would that look like? So, we'll get there when we get there. That's our saying now. We'll get there when we get there.
And that's really important what you just said about, kind of just accepting that, okay, well, if we're late, we're late. That's less time I have to be there. Like, one of my favorite things to do, especially like with my one-on-one clients, when they message me in the middle of the week with something that they're spiraling out about a little bit, I go, okay, worst case scenario about this thing that we're upset about. So say the worst case scenario about being late to this appointment. What is the absolute worst thing that could happen with being late? Maybe that you need to go back the next day, that you have a sassy receptionist that's going to give you a little bit of attitude, that you have to wait a little bit longer for later. But like, when you really break it down, we put so much pressure on these things like being late or the traffic or all this stuff, when really the worst case scenario for being late isn't worth you feeling that terrible the whole experience long,
And being kind to yourself and not so hard on yourself. I really had to learn that. Don't be so hard on myself and be kind.
Yep. I use this phrase all the time, and it's from my incredible therapist, that she said this to me one time, and it's become like my parting like phrase at the door. She goes, all right, girlfriend, put the baseball bat down. Like, stop beating yourself up so hard, so much, because
I love that.
You're losing for it.
Yeah, I love that too.
It's such a good one. And when you really think about it, putting a visualization to something can be such a powerful way to identify when it's happening. And so, Miriam, you were talking about, like, the nasty voice, all the things you're saying in the background. I tell people to name it. Name the nasty voice. Like, give it a person, give it an embodiment, so that you can clap back at them when they are starting to act up. And so my nasty voice is called the bitch committee, because it's just a whole sea of voices. And so when the bitch committee starts, I envision them, in my head. They've all got baseball bats. It's just this catty group of faceless women in the corner just saying nasty things about me. And I get to go, no, this is not my truth. The bitch committee is not who I am. Y'all get to be quiet now, and I'm choosing what I want to say instead.
Can I just take a moment and tell you how much I love you and how real you really are?
Thank you.
Because there are some days where I look in the mirror, I'm like, girl, who are you talking to? And it's me.
Yeah,
girl.
Yeah. And we're saying these things, and it's like, Jesus, where's this even coming from? So thank you for saying that. I mean, I promise 100% of the time to always be real. And half the things I teach on are things that I'm working on myself too, because not a single one of us is perfect. And there's going to be days where you feel like, oh my God, I nailed it today. I feel like I loved on myself and the anxiety didn't take over. And there's going to be other days where it feels like a losing battle. And that happens. I still have days where I have to work really, really hard to get out of the tidal wave of anxiety. But that doesn't mean that you're doing anything wrong. It doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with you. And that's the most important thing to remember, is that some days are going to be harder than others, but it does not reflect back on you at all.
I'm so glad.
Yeah, I love that you're saying this. You know, in the morning when I wake up, I try to wake up and think of one positive thing I want to accomplish that day. Just one.
Ooh,
even
good.
If it's today I will spend 15 minutes doing this and this or that. Just one positive thought. Because what I experienced is when I woke up in the morning, when my husband wasn't doing well, and I thought of, today isn't gonna be a good day. Everything went wrong.
Yep. Because that's the filter that you're then looking at your whole day as. And we put these filters on all of our experience. And if you decide today's going to be a bad day, then that's all you're going to see it through, is this filter of just shitty things. Yeah. And when you wake up and decide instead to focus on that one positive thing, or my other favorite thing that I do in the morning to just decide how I want to get out of bed, is I lay there and I think of 5 things that I'm grateful for, and I feel them in my body. You know, what am I really grateful for today? And that sets the stage that now the filter I'm starting my day with is gratitude and not stress, you know?
Yeah, I love it. I so many nuggets. Oh, I love it. I love it, Stephanie. I could talk to you for hours.
I feel the same way about you ladies. You don't even know. I'm so excited to be here with you again.
And one more question, Stephanie. You and Ashley talked about the ladies with a baseball bat.
Mm-hmm.
For instance, I'm in a waiting room and those ladies jump in. The waiting room is full of people. What do you do?
So this is the waiting room in your mind that's full of people who are saying nasty things about you?
No. You're in the waiting room. You're at the dentist in the waiting room.
Okay, so you're in a real life position.
Yes.
Where...
And the ladies jump in.
Okay.
What do you do?
So it's all an internal game, because this is all happening in our heads, right? And this is why I love helping people come up with like the personification of their nasty girl, because when those voices start to come in, like I have one client whose nasty girl's name is Jessica. It just happened to be what she named her. There's nothing against women named Jessica ever. So when Jessica comes in and starts getting really nasty with her, she dressed her up. Right. So we know she knows exactly what Jessica looks like. She's a blonde. She wears this particular outfit when she comes in to be a giant jerk. And putting that personification to it allowed her brain then to respond to that instead of just inherently believing that it's all her. And so when you're able to dress her up, you say, all right, Jessica, I see you. You're here, and this is happening in your head because you don't want to be saying this out loud in the corner of a waiting room. If you are in a position where you can say it out loud, activating your voice is very, very powerful. So my dog is so used to listening to me talk to myself, because I'll be over here like, all right, I see you. We're not doing this today. I want no part of this. Thank you for whatever the heck you were trying to do, but I'll take it from here. And that's the kind of self-talk in these situations, you know, when you're sitting in the waiting room and your nasty girl's coming up, choosing how you want to respond, like turning her into a person so that you can then respond to her, makes it easier to understand what's happening. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Okay. So, and then, choosing, you know, what do you need to say to her? And it sounds a little counterintuitive, but I always thank mine for being there. because I know that for whatever reason, that came from some sort of part of me that just really, really twisted the way that my brain was trying to protect me. And this is something that we definitely don't have time to like dive into today, because this is, it's like a core beliefs, inner child sort of conversation, which we can dive into more another day. But oftentimes that nasty voice has come from something that at one point our brain thought was going to help. And so I say, thanks for being here. However, this isn't how I choose to do things. And I don't need, I'll take it from here. I don't need you anymore. I don't need this. And it's time to be quiet now. And so it sounds kind of funny having a conversation with yourself in your head, but I mean, that's what we're doing all day long anyway. It's just having conversations with ourselves.
Yeah, that's true.
Literally all day, every day.
Every day, all day. We talk to ourselves more than we talk to any other person on the planet. So why not turn it into a conversation when there's a part of yourself that's popping up that's going to be trying to cause some issues?
Stephanie, since you brought that up, because sometimes my conversations actually become audible, and whoever's sitting around me is like, who are you talking to? Myself. Now leave me alone to my conversation. Mm-hmm. Has there been any kind of study, like how many thoughts and conversations one actually has with themselves that you know of?
There is. I read something recently.
I know that was so super random, but it was actually a thought that I had in my mind as you were speaking on it.
So I read this recently. It was actually a study that was just done in July of last year that suggested that the average person has 6,200 thoughts per day.
That's why my head be hurting.
Yep.
Because I think too much, see? And talk to myself too much.
And there's so many things that go through our brain that actually aren't even on a conscious level. So what we're registering isn't even all of what's happening in there.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did you say 6,000?
6,200 thoughts per day. Yep.
And I wonder how many of them happen to be negative. I'm not asking you to look that up.
But that's an important thought.
Yeah.
You know, like how much, and I think it's, my breathe alarm just went off. I love those silent alarms. It's an important conversation to ask yourself. Like if you had to okay, what percentage of my self-talk is the nasty girl? And what percentage is me choosing self-love and positivity, choosing love over fear? You know what I mean? Because it's all a choice. And that's both empowering and frustrating when you're first starting this work with yourself, to understand that everything is a choice. Because a lot of times it's easier to just think, oh, well, it's this thing that I can't control, or, I reacted this way because that's just how I am. No, that's actually not how that works.
You don't have to accept that.
Mm-hmm.
You have to accept that. Oh, that's just the way I am. You don't have to accept that. You can choose.
Everything about ourselves was learned at some point over the course of our life, from the day that we were born until right now. We are constantly learning. We are learning what's socially acceptable. We are learning, how to react based off our core beliefs. We're learning all of these different things that interact together. And so the statement, "this is just how I am," could not be more false. But I know I rub a lot of people the wrong way with that, because taking that self-ownership is one of the most difficult things that we can do, to really take a look at ourselves, right?
That's kind of like throwing it onto somebody else, like not keeping yourself accountable for your thoughts and your actions, right?
Yes, exactly. And that's a lot of where, control over anxiety comes from, is taking that control over your thoughts, over what you're choosing, and understanding that everything is a choice, instead of just being, a passenger in where your brain takes you every day,
Wow. Okay.
So interesting. All of this. Oh my gosh.
I love these conversations.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just, I'm learning so much, from the very first time I talked to you, Stephanie, to a couple weeks ago till now. You just really have opened up my mind up about anxiety, and that because of anxiety I've dealt with in my life, it, persisted, it grew, it blossomed, and it became, physically aware to me in ways that I'm still dealing with and trying to negate. And what I realized the most after our conversations is that it's okay to, we're going to feel things. It's not going to be something that we never ever deal with again. Overcoming anxiety to me means not necessarily I'm Superwoman and I'm never going to think negative thoughts ever again.
No,
that's not
reality. Yeah.
Right. To me, overcoming anxiety means I know what my triggers are. I'm going to try to stay away from those triggers the best I can.
Yep.
But if I find myself in a spot where, oh no, here we go, here's an attack. Guess what? Stephanie has taught me ways. I might look crazy while doing it, but I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
So
yes.
that's my big takeaway for overcoming anxiety. It's not necessarily something that you're never going to deal with again, but at least you can know your triggers and then tools to negate those triggers.
Exactly. And that's where, the self-awareness piece that I always come back to is the most important part, is knowing when the nasty girl's coming in, paying attention to your thoughts, paying attention to what it is that you're choosing. And, when I say that everything is a choice and that allows us to get ourselves into a more empowered place, I definitely wanted to make sure that I addressed this before we wrapped up, because we're human, and we just talked about that baseball bat. Sometimes we can hear things like that and then go, all right, well, what's wrong with me that I have chosen this particular way up until now? No. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You can't know what you don't know before you know it. I'm going to say that again. You can't know what you don't know before you know it. So for some people listening to this conversation, you may not have had any awareness of some of the things that we were talking about before this point, that maybe it's going to help you start thinking about things in a little bit of a deeper way. Mm-hmm. But then our brain's going to want to come up and go, well, if I've been doing this, then I did it to myself. Well, then it's my fault. No. We are going to have a very, very real self-love conversation tomorrow, which I'm excited to coincides with Valentine's Day.
But my mom, lovingly, we call her Mama J, just came with some fire. Don't let what others do around you affect your attitude. Okay, Mama J.
Yes, love it, Mama.
But she's so right. And she, my dad and my mom always told me this. And it didn't really hit me until as I got older, but they always told me this. Don't let what someone says, someone does affect what you are doing. And it wasn't until I got older, a couple years ago, that I finally realized, like, something has to change, and it's going to be me.
Yeah.
Kind of how I respond to my surroundings.
Because we can't control what people are going to say or what people are going to do. We have zero control over anybody else on the planet. All we can do is choose how we want to respond to what's in front of us.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And also knowing the other flip side of that is that how someone responds to you, how, or how someone acts towards you is never something that you have to own.
I've heard this.
Yeah. It is not someone else, how they respond to you is not a reflection on you. It is 100% a reflection on them. And, as feelsy human beings, we can sometimes want to absorb and incorporate, like when someone acts like they're mad at us or when someone kind of takes something out on us. 99% of the time, it's actually not at all about you. And it's a reflection on whatever it is that they're dealing with.
Wow.
And so then that, it's extra important in those cases to choose how you want to respond, because we could just continue to perpetuate, well, then I'm going to take it out on this guy over here and he's going to get pissed off at that woman over there. And, we can ripple effect negative or we can ripple effect positive. So it's all about choosing.
Yeah. I that's something you
So
constantly
I
have to remind yourself.
this is awesome. This is so valuable. All
This
those
is so great.
nuggets.
I'm so
Yes.
glad it was helpful.
I hope you all have been writing notes. I've been trying to type where I can. Some of the little gems that not little, these gems that Stephanie and Miriam have been dropping today. So I just loved when you first sent your plan for what you wanted to speak about each day. I zoned in on the love over fear because, oh my goodness, everybody should remember that.
Yeah.
Just write that down or put it in your cell phone, whatever. Love over fear. I love it. We have to choose. Everybody needs to choose love over fear. We
Yeah.
would be in such a better place, in the world if we all chose love over fear.
And having those visual reminders is really powerful. Like I mentioned, my silent alarm went off a couple minutes ago to breathe. Like, I have quotes that will go off on my phone and pop up. I have sticky notes all over my house with things that the more that it's in front of you, the more you're going to remember. So I actually have in my bathroom, choose love over fear on my mirror in there. And
I love that.
Wow.
that's just happens to be one that I have. And so I have, kind of zoning in on what things you want to help program your brain to remember and start putting it around everywhere. I've got a bunch of them all around my computer where we're sitting, like taped on my walls and things like that too, because it's important to remind yourself consistently what you want to start to embody.
Yeah. And training your brain as well.
Yes. Yep.
The more you see it, the more you remember it.
It doesn't happen overnight. And knowing that you're not going to wake up tomorrow a master of all things that we've just talked about today, like, it doesn't work that way.
Right.
It's going to take some time, and that's okay. That's the human experience.
I like that you mentioned that. Had you caught me with this conversation, a year or two ago, I'd been like, okay, we're not going to have any negative feelings ever again. And that's just not the reality.
No. And that's why I 100% admit when I'm speaking or sharing with clients or just talking live on Facebook on my own page, I will 100% admit that this is still something I work at every day.
Yeah.
Just because I teach on it doesn't mean that I'm like the master of I never have a shitty thought ever. I had a moment this morning I had to talk myself out of.
Yeah.
Because I'm a human, and that's okay.
Yeah. Miriam and I often talk about, our caregiver journeys and, how we realize other caregivers. Of course, everybody's journey is not cookie cutter, but how, we can try, if the caregivers want the help, how we can try to help them, steer them away from certain, negative thoughts, feelings in their lives. And, it's not that we don't deal with it.
Yep.
Like you said, just this morning, you had a thought. It doesn't mean that I never don't have a thought, but because trust me, for caregivers that have to deal with their loved ones that have cancer, there's literally, I thought I was making this up, but I after talking with other caregivers that deal with cancer, we call when our loved one has to go get scans, we call it scanxiety, because we are fully believing that they don't have the cancer anymore, but we don't know that until after those scans. And it's every 3 months for me, for I don't know how long. Every 3 months come around when he has to have a scan, I'm like this, like the day of the scan until we get the results, I'm just like a wreck. Again, I'm fully believing and I'm positive, but we still, it's just the whole mindset of the what if that I can't control.
Yeah. Yep.
And I have to talk myself, I still have the anxious thoughts, but I'm learning to talk with myself like, okay, what if? What are we gonna do? The same thing we did, fight.
Yep.
And just like the flip of the coin, what if it's good? We gonna keep living our lives how we have been to the fullest, intentionally, so those thoughts won't ever fully go away, but at least we can navigate, like I said earlier, on how to control the nasty girl and tell her to go have a seat.
Yep.
Because she can't sit at my table. This is my food. She can't sit here and eat with me. She got to go.
I love it. You can't sit with us. Yep.
Yeah, you can't sit with us.
On those days when we have to wait for the results, my husband has every 4 months, he has a check. We do some extra breathing, some extra meditation, try to calm. Because we know if the phone rings and it's the hospital, there's something wrong. And thank God we didn't get any phone call. But it's every 4 months that we're like, okay, today we're going to do some extra meditation, take a walk, and try.
That's so important.
With it.
Yeah.
And I don't think caregiver journeys are fully done. Like you're just because, for instance, Martin is clear, like his organs are working and functioning great. Troy's cancer free, but we still have to do those maintenance things. And this is for all the time, the rest of life. Because of what they've gone through, they have to do these things every so often, every month, year, whatever it is. So we're always going to have these thoughts, this journey that we're on. It's a long one. And for Miriam and I, we started in our early 30s. So, we're going to have to continue on this path for all of time. So our caregiver hat is always going to be on. So we're always going to have, different thoughts, but using these tools is very helpful. And, Miriam's program where she helps caregivers go from, downtrodden, anxious filled to caregiver 2.0, like dun da da da, Superwoman, Superman, so it's just whatever we can do to help others like us avoid the burnout, avoid those anxious thoughts.
Yes, and you, Stephanie, when it comes to anxiety, the coaching, wow, chapeau.
Thank you.
I read one of your clients actually posted about your services, and I said, "Oh Lord, yes, I know we got the right girl in our corner."
I felt so blessed to receive that amazing testimonial that's the one I posted recently. Thank you.
Yes.
And I'm excited because there's a lot of I love helping women just come to a more empowered place over anxiety and all of those things. And I have a very unique take on things, as maybe you may have noticed from some of the things that I shared here.
You're real, and I love that. And we want someone that has been in the trenches to help us, right? Because you know what it's like. I don't want someone that's never been a caregiver to tell me how to do something. Like, have you been somewhere like in the hospital? Have you watched someone do treatment or major surgery? No, get out of my face. Like, we want someone that's been there and done that and has gathered those tools to be able to bless others and help them kind of get out of that funk, that situation.
Absolutely. And I will always, I'll be real with you guys. I'm like I pick my fingers with anxiety. I'm sitting here bleeding right now, just as totally by accident. I look down and I'm like, oh shoot, I didn't even realize it was happening.
Yeah. But just so that we can wrap up, I'm so thankful that you have come to us for this 3 days, this President's Day, Valentine's Day weekend. I'm so thankful. Thank you. I can't say it enough or more eloquently. But please let us know what is kind of like an overview for tomorrow.
Yes.
For Sunday.
Tomorrow is all things of the self. We are going to be talking self-care, self-talk, self-worth, and self-love.
Love it.
Big focus for tomorrow. Treat yourself, especially because it's Valentine's Day, and us, it has to start with loving on yourself first. I bought myself flowers earlier. So tomorrow is all things of the self. We're going to have a big boundaries conversation, which is so, so crucial and important and goes with all of that so hard.
I'm going to be taking a lot of notes because my boundaries are lacking. So
you know what? All of in some way, shape, or form, we could all beef them up somewhere. So you're not alone. So that'll be tomorrow, and then Sunday, we're going to be talking about a lot of that, like the uncertainty, the what if, what to do in those situations when the anxiety comes up. Just like when you were sharing, Ashley, I was like, that is so perfect because we're going to dive right into that on Monday.
Okay, perfect.
So we're going to do that, getting more into that like empowered place over anxiety, grounding practices, things like that. So I'm excited for the next 2 days.
Yes, thank you so much. You've already dropped so many nuggets,
Yeah, and if people have questions, please drop them. So
yes,
and you can
definitely you can do that anywhere. I've put our IG handles in the banner below. You can find us on Facebook, Timeless Dream Events, Marion Baldwin, and Up Leveling Unapologetically with Stephanie Lora Bearce. Did I say it right that time?
Bearce.
Oh my gosh.
It's
I'm gonna get it. I'm gonna get it.
It's Scottish and weird. It's not your fault.
I'm gonna get it before Monday. So yeah, definitely drop us a note of any suggestions, any questions. Maybe if you don't feel comfortable asking in front of other people, that's fine. Let us know. We can ask the question for you so that you can get your question answered, because this is so important. Anxiety wrecks your mind, your body, and the people, especially if you're a caregiver, that loved one will feel those anxious feelings and thoughts. They really do. So just please let us know how we can be of service, what questions we can answer for you, and we will be back on at 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time, 9:30 a.m. Pacific Time. So tune in, and much love, y'all.
Yay!
Thank y'all.
Thank you.
See you tomorrow.
It says we're still live, but Ashley left. I don't know how to turn the live off.
That's Ashley.
Sorry if anyone's watching and you can just hang out with us.
My bad. See, look, I didn't even stop the broadcast. That's my bad.